Try to spend some time during the day with your passions, and you'll be happy.
Hello from my mother's walk-in closet in Florida. Don't even ask. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast, presented by Hippo Direct. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur or innovator every single Wednesday morning who's unleashing creativity to grow their business. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, digital marketing dude at Hippo Direct, and you can reach me at max@hippodirect.com for any help with podcasting or digital marketing. This is episode number 37, and today's guest is Ben Sturner. He's an absolute all-star, and he's the founder and CEO of Leverage Agency, one of the top sports marketing firms in the world. His resume includes leading the sponsorships of multiple Triple Crown winners, bringing cricket to America, and partnering with names such as Lady Gaga, Richard Branson, and even more. Get those stretches in because it's game time. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Ben Sturner, the founder of Leverage Agency and one of the brightest minds in the sports business and sports marketing world. How you doing today, Ben?
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a nice compliment, and I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, and thank you so much for hosting me at your amazing office in NYC here. Before we get into it, quick shout out to our mutual buddy, Brian Rosen, for connecting us in the first place when you came to speak at the IU Sports Business Conference back in I don't know. That must have been 2011, 2012-ish.
Yeah, I love Brian, and he was a freshman, and I knew his father, Lon Rosen.
Yeah, Lon, the legend.
Is now the chief marketing officer for the LA Dodgers, and he's been a very good friend and helping me out, and hopefully I've been able to help out Brian. And I remember when he started, when he was a freshman, and I was going to IU, and got to meet both of you guys down there. So
yeah.
You're doing great.
Yeah, exactly.
So congrats on all your success, too.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so we're just going to talk about my success during this hour. And you can... No, I'm just kidding. So for anybody that's not familiar with you yet, can you start off by giving a little bit of introduction of how you got started into your professional career and what's the biggest thing you're up to today? I know you're up to maybe a couple things.
I got started when I was very young, and I kind of knew what I wanted to do, kind of. But I, evolve as you go, and that's how I think the life as an entrepreneur is every day. But I started when I was, 16 years old in high school. I would like to say that was my first opportunity. I was working at a sports radio talk show.
There you go.
I was winning the trivia contest when I was in high school for the UNC College Station sports talk show, and they brought me in, and so that helped me understand a little bit more on the sports communication side, and that led me to Boston University. I interned at a company called Sports Media Technology out of Durham, North Carolina. It does the scoring, and they were doing the scoring for the X Games, and the first ever X Games I got to work at in Newport, Rhode Island in 1995.
Holy
I don't know
cow.
how old you were then.
I was 3, but
I was about 18. So.
There were several years growing up that I was obsessed with the X Games, but that was before they were even the X Games, right? They were extreme games.
Extreme games, yes. It was working on the bikes, blades, and boards, and it was kind of fun. And I was the youngest person probably working there, and I was always the youngest, kind of when I was starting. And I figured that when I get to be a certain age, people who are my age will be able to work with closely, right? So we'll talk about the Manhattan Sports Business Academy later. But, that is an idea I kind of had where I wanted to work at the Olympics. And so in 1996, the Atlanta Olympics were coming, and to get into sports business and marketing and sports world, if you can get a job in the Atlanta Olympics, you'll meet a lot of people. And so
I'd say so.
I went to a speech at Boston University with Andrew Lack, who's now the president of NBC News. He gave me someone to contact at NBC, and I worked in production as basically an intern that summer. But I was at the Atlanta Olympics, and being part of an Olympics where you have, hundreds of countries coming together and the best of the best athletes, but also business and sports. And it was an incredible experience and a lot of fun when you're young to be over there. And it made it a passion of mine. And I worked in Australia at Sydney Olympic Committee. I went abroad during college, and then I worked at Lycos and worked on the Olympics.com, the first ever website. And we did the community, so the boards, message boards, and the chats, and it was kind of like the Facebook before it came together, where we kind of combined the countries. And so I managed the sponsorship of that, and I was managing sponsorships at Lycos, doing Anna Kournikova, doing Manchester United, doing lots of big deals that they were doing. It was the number one internet search engine at the time in 2000. And then I went to work for a guy named Jeff Bennett, who started his own sports marketing company. And there was a point in my life where I felt like I wanted to do that. Work in sports marketing and be part of a company and actually own a company at one time. So I figured if I can learn that entrepreneurial side of the business, which I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was at the time.
Right, yeah.
And he said, you're going to work a lot on commission. I didn't know what commission was. And what I liked about it was you could do as much as you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're able to succeed on PR and you're able to bring in stories, it's similar with that in sales, right? If you're able to get a deal done, it's different as you can make as much money as you can. So like sky is unlimited, right? But also the types of deals could be that way too. And I loved being in that environment of being an entrepreneur with Jeff and a couple other guys. And after he left in 2005, I had some opportunities to work in the corporate world, and I weighed them. And I said, I had one client that came with me from Jeff's company, the National Lacrosse League.
Yep.
And that was my first client out of my apartment. And so I said, let's do it. And I had to hustle. It was a lot of work. And,
imagine a little bit of work went into that. So you start, the Olympics thing is fascinating to me because so many athletes aspire to get to the Olympics. And that's like their ultimate goal is to, win gold in the Olympics. And that's the highest stage possible. Your career, you basically started your career at that experience with the highest level. So it's kind of like an interesting paradox there. So where did you go from that? After you were done with the Olympics, how did you handle that and kind of be like, all right, that was an amazing experience. I've kind of already done the Olympics. Well, what's next?
I felt every time, and even to date, every year of my work experience, I feel like it gets better, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me in Atlanta, I said, I'm going to go to Sydney because I loved it. And I've actually, since that time when Muhammad Ali lit the torch, I've been to 8 Olympics, which is really cool. I just like to travel and see the world and being part of it. And sometimes in work capacity, sometimes just spectator. But, when you approach the jobs that you have as something that's you're passionate about, and your clients that you're passionate about, you're just having a great time. And then being able to build something, whether it's a company or a product or an event that you can kind of create of your own, that's what really gets me very excited now. And so being an entrepreneur and building stuff and helping, my employees grow, helping, the company grow, and seeing that is really fun. Because I started out in my apartment. You don't start out in an office in Madison Avenue like here. You have to work. And it's about putting in the work, the hustle, the elbow grease, and being a little bit relentless if you can, and just finding that vision till it happens. And I think when you make a vision and it's a Muhammad Ali quote. I think he said you can envision it, you can believe it, you can do it. Right. You gotta put yourself into that.
Yeah, it's true, and that especially hits home for me as I work out of my apartment so often. So I totally understand.
It's the best way to start.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. Let's talk about Leverage. We're sitting here at Leverage Agency, award-winning agency. You've done so many amazing campaigns and built such a really, really cool sports, business, marketing, whatever you want to call it, empire here. How did you come up with this specific idea to start Leverage out of your apartment?
Well, I was thinking of different names, and I like, emphasis, and I forget the different names I was considering, it wasn't going to be Sturner Sports. I wanted something Leverage. I liked it was strong and it was fun. And you make a website, you have a client, you have a couple clients, you get a reputation for delivering. You have to deliver, or you can't put case studies on a website.
Right.
And I felt that revenue generation is the most important thing to anything in any job, right? So if you can generate revenue, which sports properties need, that was a need. And so that's kind of where I started in bringing in new properties. We work with Jimmy Kimmel Live, since 2007, Pro Beach Volleyball. One of our early clients was the World Cup of Softball. We've done some work with NASCAR and Gillette. Big project we did with them for Fast Cars and Superstars. We brought cricket to America. We've brought in hockey games in Madison Square Garden and Triple Crowns with work and a lot of different things, and the great tennis too, and some basketball work. in soccer.
Yeah. So you're basically inventing sports at this point. You've done so
doing
many
different things.
Mm-hmm.
I think makes it exciting.
Yeah.
For me, in the ADD world of my own ADD, it's you have to be able to have different types of things that gets you going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think is interesting to me. Is there's different properties that you represent that have different facets.
Yeah. How'd you maintain such an emphasis on revenue generation? Like, how does that look on a daily basis when it's so important to a startup company?
Yeah, I mean, you have to help the properties go out and find the sponsors. So that entails research, entails calls, and entails emails, meetings, and closing deals, right? And finding out how to, do that and finding the right people. And to me, people first, this company is about the people. I've had, guys like Chris Farrell, who's been with me 10 years, and then Kevin McIntyre for 11 years. And I'm proud of that. And, I think, revenue generation is very important, but also, we're doing a lot of PR and consulting. One of our biggest clients is Schalke, FC Schalke 04, which is a German team, Bundesliga team, one of the most popular teams. Yeah. We're helping them on strategy in the United States. So we're doing a lot of different things too, and a lot on the entertainment side, brokering talent deals, and a lot of brand entertainment too.
Oh. And you've already mentioned so many of the amazing clients that you've worked with and campaigns that you've done. When you think back to your career with Leverage so far, what are, I would say, the two most memorable campaigns that you've done? I
would have to say I've been lucky enough to be part of 3 Triple Crown runs, which is amazing, but 2 of them that actually became Triple Crowns. And Triple Crowns only happen once every 36 years at the point, right? So, right. Affirmed, I think, won in 77, and then it was 2008-16, and there's a course named American Pharaoh. And a very good friend of mine who I grew up in the business with is Darren Rovell. Yeah. And
he's great.
We were both 22, and he was working at Fox Sports, and I was at Lyco, so we became close friends, and we still talked to him every day. And so he referred me with the owner of American Pharaoh, Ahmed Zayat. We have a short period of time to bring in a sponsor, and I wanted to think creatively on it, and brought in Monster Energy. And it was a really big deal because it was different facets of the deal, because the jockey was wearing the hat, but he was also drinking Monster in the winner's circle. We had the Monster girls walk the horse in, and he actually talked about Monster in his post-race interview. And then Wheels Up was a sponsor in the pants, and 2 years later, same thing happened. Justify, was going for the Triple Crown. And one of my first calls was another entrepreneur named Kenny Dichter, who's CEO of Wheels Up. And he had a great experience working with us, American Pharaoh. And, his whole thing is winners fly wheels up. And he went for the whole big thing and took the exclusive partnership with Justify. And, I wasn't sure if he was going to win because there's been a lot
It's not easy to win.
And they did, and it was the same type of feeling. And we just did a bottle for Justify with Maker's Mark and a few other deals. And so that's been really fun to work on. Yeah. And other things, we bringing a sport like cricket to America and doing it in baseball stadiums was interesting. We've done a hockey game in Madison Square Garden with Harvard versus Yale, and we called it Rivalry on Ice. I figured there's such a great rivalry there. And in football and just in academics, and there are 2 great schools in hockey, and we sold out the Garden. We had Secretary of State John Kerry drop the puck, and it was kind of fun. And I went to Boston University, a big college hockey school, and I grew up in North Carolina with college basketball, but college hockey became something interesting and a big fan base here. I never thought it would be that big, and people love it if it's the right schools playing.
Right. Yeah. Well, so for the cricket example and for the rivalry on ice, for those, you're behind the event and you're kind of
coming up with the logos, you're getting the sponsors yourself, you're getting the players, you're getting
doing everything,
the logistics. So that's where you got to
staff.
Right.
So for those, as far as your specific hand in it, it doesn't make too much of a difference what side wins. And I'm imagining same thing for cricket, since you're kind of behind the whole event. But for whenever you're behind a horse that's going for the Triple Crown, obviously you want that horse to win the Triple Crown. You need that horse to win Belmont. So what's that like, planning for something like you did for American Pharaoh, for California Chrome, for Justified, where you really need something to happen for the campaigns to be successful, but it's not guaranteed.
I guarantee you're still getting a lot of exposure because all the eyes and TV cameras are on the horse.
Yeah.
But, it's just icing on the cake, right? And
That's
so
some
one
quality
of the
icing.
things, that's changed in my life is I don't root for many teams because I'm just looking at this I'm looking at
right.
branding, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the sponsorship and the activation, and I love sports still, but it's not about like rooting as much. I'm a big Duke fan, so I take that back in some degree. But when you're in sports business, I like to say is I want people who come into the office for a job. I ask them about sports, and they can talk about stats. That's great, but tell me about the brands that you see. Tell me about some great activations. Tell me about something different you've seen in the business side of sports.
Yeah.
And marketing.
When did you know for sure, like, I want to craft my whole career to be around sports business and marketing in this world?
I didn't know that until I realized things I wasn't good at, right? And so there's a lot of things I'm not good at. And my wife could tell you too.
Well, that's everyone.
But, I like television production, and PR was something I liked, but it wasn't like my total passion in a lot of the ways. And I liked sponsorship, and I liked coming up with ideas, and sports was my, the passion I wanted to do. And I just, when you become an entrepreneur and you start doing it, it just keeps going, right? So that's something you just have to keep being innovative, creative, coming up with campaigns where, we put patches on players who are playing in the U.S. Open of different brands who, against the top players like Federer and Nadal. And, you try to come up with innovative stuff. And I have a new property which we own and I've came up with that I'm very excited about for 2019. We're going to make some big noise with. It's called the Urban Fitness League, the UFL.
UFL, yeah. I've seen your stuff on it. Very cool, yeah.
And we'll be launching a TV show soon. So that came as an idea from walking the streets of New York City and seeing a guy doing crazy pull-ups and crazy stuff in the streets, and I got to know the guy. His name was Abs. I said, "Why is your name Abs?"
His name was Abs.
He had a 16-pack, not a 6-pack. I asked him if he can work me out, and we started training together. And I couldn't even Facebook him, or he had so many friends. And I'm like, "How does this happen?" And then I see the online version of these guys in street workout and calisthenics, it's massive, some of the personalities. So I got to know them. Yeah. And, in my mind, I'm always thinking of these new ideas of business and how you can make it into a league. And so we created this league and had some major events, including a World Cup in Coney Island on the 4th of July, the same day as the hot dog eating contest. So you kind of fat one side and the fit people on the other. But it was fun. Mario Lopez hosted it with Tyson Beckford, and Stefan Marbury got involved. He's a Coney Island guy who's very famous in China, and we might be doing some stuff with him in the future there.
Wow.
And we had 11 countries competing in the World Cup of Urban Fitness.
That's amazing. Going back to your Olympic roots with all the international ties there.
I'm working on something right now called the World Beach Games, and there's 100 countries competing. It's in San Diego, and it's all beach sports. And so we just got that assignment, and it's all the National Olympic Committee. So it's kind of things in life circle back to where you start all the time. I feel.
Is spike ball included in that? Are you familiar with spike ball?
It's not spike ball. It's all the ones that are like beach soccer, beach volleyball, skateboarding, and surfing.
Yeah.
Like the very millennial side of things, with NBC broadcasting it and also having a music festival.
Wow. Well,
so that'll be in October. It's
sounds
cool.
Sounds pretty fun to attend. Not bad to visit a beach and have music and sports entertainment the whole time. So that's pretty cool. When you think back to when you started in the sports business world versus what it's like now, what are some of the biggest changes that you've noticed over time?
Well, I think now, there's so much data to be had.
Yeah. And
there's so many choices, right? So before it was like Major League Baseball and NBA and NFL and CBS and Fox and NBC. Now you've got Bleacher Report and all sorts of websites and blogs and people taking attention from you, right? And even
Barstool's got to be a big disruptor
another
too.
One, they're disrupting the industry, right?
Yep.
And it's all happening on the phone. So things are changing. Esports is very big because younger kids are into it. and they're becoming stars themselves, and so there's a lot of things that are changing in the industry, and I think the way you do business also changes too. And people don't check their phone messages. Someone wrote about this today. It's like, don't call me, text me.
Right.
Email is good too. It's the one thing I think I take pride in is I try to get back to everybody I can on email and text, because I remember the way it was like when I was on the other side, and so you just want to get back to people, and you don't want to miss out on opportunities. And so I read in the New York Times I still read an actual paper with as well as online, but I just read as much as I can, Twitter and social media, but I read about 10 or 15 different websites in the morning before I come into work.
Really?
And come up with ideas. And
is that on your commute in?
It's in my commute in now. Yeah, living in Connecticut.
Yeah, shout out Connecticut.
Shout out to Westport. I used to be in LIC and the UES, Upper East Side.
There we go. All the acronyms there. What do you so you mentioned esports. We're seeing a lot in the video game space. We're seeing a lot. There's obviously new rules with gambling. There's new pro football leagues coming out of nowhere. What things going on in the sports world now do you think is, from your perspective, is the next big thing and is going to actually build momentum over the next few years?
Well, I think esports is really growing in a big way. Followers and just events and teams, and just figuring out a way to monetize that from a sponsorship standpoint right now is at a very early stage. So I see that as having some huge growth.
Right. But
some non-traditional sports that are, I think could be big. Rugby is caught on a lot here, and UFL will be big. But those type of sports where there's a niche growth. I like what Rabel's doing with the PLL, and he's really taking a hands-on approach. I follow him a lot, and I see everything he's doing with Premier Lacrosse League and launching it and documenting it and just making it very fan-friendly. I think he'll do pretty well there.
Yeah. And you kind of foreshadowed a little bit earlier, but you started the Manhattan Sports Business Academy. You talk about that for a little?
Yeah,
what it is and how that...
So that came to play actually at when I went to speak in Indiana.
Yeah.
Two of the students there became interns, Will Kendall and Scott. They came into the office and were playing tennis with me in the mornings and doing their internships. And I said, maybe we can have some type of an academy for fitness and business. And how do you combine your passions? When you combine your passions, it's like your dream of, type of job. And I said, maybe there's some type of camp or academy. And then we came up with the Manhattan Sports Business Academy, really focusing on the business side of sports, providing internships, helping out students with mentors. They get a senior mentor and a junior mentor. It's been 8 years since it started. And, we've had hundreds of students come in to New York City, and, we experience the city and have events every single night and speakers every night for 8 weeks.
Wow.
And I wanted to make it like, when I started in sports, I was telling you earlier, television production was an area I went into that I didn't like, because I didn't want to be in the dark room in doing stuff that I'm not very
You need
good
some
at,
light.
right? But it's just, it's not as glamorous as everybody thinks.
Yeah.
But you don't know that. You don't know about sponsorship until you actually stumble upon it. But I wanted to give the students an opportunity to learn from people, go to the NFL, the NBA, to Brooklyn Sports Entertainment, to Madison Square Garden, and, hear from agencies and athlete reps and sponsorship people and ticket sales people and PR people. And just, there's so many different facets of the industry. And I wanted the students in our academy to kind of learn from each one, so they come out and saying, hey, I really am interested in this type of field. And I learned a lot about, the industry as a whole, and from a hands-on approach, and also just being around students your own age. You're going to grow up in the same industry with them and, do some deals.
Yeah. And how many, it's been hundreds of students. Students that go through this academy, what do they typically do after? Do you find that a lot of them stay in the sports world?
A lot of them stay in sports. We have guys who are working at Madison Square Garden now.
Heard of it.
Guys is director of sponsorships for the UFC. Another one's working Brooklyn Nets and the G League. And another guy works at Kansas City Chiefs. And
Holy cow.
Another girl's working for the United States Olympic Committee. So we've had an incredible alum.
Yeah.
And it's a network, right? It's an industry. And once you start in the industry, like you get your name out, you have to go to conferences, you have to meet people, you have to be out and about and get your name out, develop relationships. And so the people who speak, the people who give internships are friends, and for the most part. Not all of them now, but we have full-time people working on it, working with the partners in the internship programs and stuff. So it's a great program, and I wanted to do something to give back to students.
Yeah, and you've definitely done so. I mean, that's an incredible track record.
Can you imagine getting a 100% open rate on your next marketing message? Well, you can with extra large postcards that are impossible to ignore. Hippo Direct can help you find the perfect list of proven direct mail responders. We can even help lay out and design the postcard for you. Check us out at hippodirect.com.
So let's talk about inspiration and creativity for a little bit. So you mentioned that you love to read and you love to look at a bunch of different websites in the morning on your commute here. What kind of websites are there? Any favorites that come to mind you want to shout out?
Well, I do read CNN a lot, just see what's going on in politics and just overall. And I go to the Bleacher Report and Yahoo Sports and now Action Network with Darren's page, and I read Sports Business Journal, I read Adweek, I read Brand Week, and a lot of business trades too, and then I have my Twitter scrolling of people I'm following and
the never-ending scrolling
articles, right? And so I'm doing a lot of that, and Instagram obviously too, and I try not to let things get past you, right? And I want to hear about these announcements right away and find new leads and find things that are relevant. You got to stay relevant sometimes. I think that's an important trait for anybody. As you get older, you have to be able to stay on what's hot, right? What's TikTok? People don't know what TikTok is, but it's getting more downloads than Facebook and Instagram.
It is, yeah, it's blowing up.
So we started doing potential work with TikTok, and I got to know this stuff. The whole gaming space is exploding too, and sometimes you just have to be on the forefront, and I like to try to be in top of the new trends. And brand launches too.
Right. Yeah. What other things do you do to stay creative outside of consuming information that way?
Well, I like to talk to people and talk to a lot of my employees who are young and millennials, and I'm now in my
shout out those 40s, darn millennials.
Listening a lot to the radio. I think that's important too. There's some trends and what's hot, right? So being on a lot of social media and kind of having a range of people who I'm friends with. I have it's one thing since I've been young. I've had a range of older people who I can connect with very well, and also younger people. So try to stay on all ages, and you never know. Help people. I think that's important too. Is just try to go and look at the other person as if it's yourself and needing help, and seeing the ways to connect people, I think, is important.
Yeah. So what people do you look up to? Who comes to mind when I ask you
My
that?
father is probably my number one. Who I look up to. My mom. What'd
your mom and dad do?
Well. So my dad is a pediatrician, and my mom was a teacher. So they're both helping people learn and take care of people. And those are the people I look up to the most. And my wife is fantastic with our kids, and just in general, a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So Tim Ferriss or.
He's the man.
I talked about Gary Vee. He's interesting too. I like to see different types of entrepreneurs and how they work. And Lewis Howes is a very good friend of mine who actually interviewed me like this 10 years ago.
Wow.
And now he's blown up, and I've seen a lot of those guys. He stayed on my couch many times, and I've been on his shows and stuff. And he's a good friend, and it's nice to see people who will do well. Do great, and so I get very happy on that.
That's incredible.
See your friends doing well, and kind of like I know this guy's going to do well. You can tell, and blow up.
Right? Yeah, and those guys. I mean, those three guys you mentioned. I'm listening to them all the time. Their podcasts, all of them are big, but they're just incredible interviewers, and they cover just so many amazing things. But they're so inspiring. So it's cool that they've inspired you as well. Let's get to a recurring segment here called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week!
Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. So this is where we talk about a recent marketing campaign that caught our attention. So Anything that comes to mind? Anything that you saw recently?
Well, I think in Sunday's paper, the New York Times, which I still get the print edition, as I mentioned before, there was an ad for Skechers had. We've actually done a lot of work with Skechers in the past and various campaigns, but we didn't do anything with this. But they did a campaign where Zion Williamson, who's one of my favorite players, plays for my favorite team, Duke.
He's creating a little bit of buzz with his talent.
A lot of buzz. And it's been fun to watch him even in high school when I was following him, seeing a guy like that. His shoe broke with Nike shoe, and Skechers has a new pair of basketball shoes, and he says, we won't break on us or something. And it showed the shoe breaking and, Skechers. So it got a lot of attention and buzz. Bold. They go back and forth with Nike and they went after him. It's kind of like Budweiser and Miller Coors, right? They did that in the Super Bowl. Direct shout out to competitors, right? So those campaigns are interesting. I think Nike's done some amazing job in terms of the gender equality and the Grammys recently, and being crazier. And they just signed a 13-year-old girl, Olivia, the soccer player, who's amazing. That she's actually going pro. So that's been interesting. Netflix is just a phenomenon that just keeps growing and growing. And there's a show called Tidying Up. And we did a client we've done a lot of work with, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Container Store. We started getting to know this Container Store people, and they wanted to create some buzz because Tidying Up is about containers, and they feature Container Store. We had a really fun integration with Guillermo from Mexico and the translator, like Marie Kondo and the Japanese translator. It was a fun bit. You can look online and the Container Store and Jimmy Kimmel Live. It's really fun. I just posted on LinkedIn actually.
Those are some amazing examples. I want to hit on the phenomenon of these brands that are becoming sort of more publicly fierce against each other. Like you mentioned, Skechers that was clearly about the whole Nike Zion thing, and some of the other brands you mentioned, and we see it in the fast food industry all the time now. Like Burger King, Wendy's, KFC are just ruthless on Twitter about each other. How do you approach the brands that you work with about basically starting shit with other brands versus kind of staying neutral and just focusing on your own brand?
It's hard, right? So I think for the most part, most companies kind of stay neutral and do that, right? So, you also have to have a lot of credibility to even start going after companies, right? Budweiser's doing it in a joking way.
Yes.
So, you can also alienate people. So you have to figure out a way to not cross the line of being, in someone's face in a mean way that the consumers will be like, oh, they're arrogant. So I think it's your consumer and where it is and what you want your brand to stand for. Right. The DNA of the brand, right? Is the DNA of the brand about authenticity. They don't need to go after people, right?
Yeah.
You want to see Nike going after Skechers, right? Skechers has more to gain by going after Nike.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And there's that old saying that any publicity is good publicity. So there's kind of that debate there about even if it's something negative or people could frown upon, people are going to talk about it. So it's something that's worked for a lot of brands. Yeah. But I think the messaging in these things are so important because what worked well with that Skechers ad is that they had really good copy there. It's not like they were just going at Nike and it was sort of a generic push. I mean, it was something relevant and witty, and it's got to do that to resonate. A couple quicker segments to wrap up here. This is a segment called The Unusual. So think about pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. What's your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve is somebody who makes excuses, I think, and has negativity, right? I don't have time for negativity. I try to be positive. Even when I get rejected in sales and things happen, you got to look at the positive in anything, right?
Right.
And so somebody who could be a little bit negative is a pet peeve, right? You want positivity in your life, so
yeah. Positively, yes.
Yes, I think that's probably number one. And just people who don't give the hustle, and it's just like you show up, but you're just showing up. You got to put in the extra work. You got to make yourself indispensable. And I try to train my team here. It's like, if you want to stay here, you got to be indispensable. So I don't want to, bring on somebody else.
Yeah. How about quirks? Is there anything you do that your wife or kids call you out for that's maybe some people would say a little odd, but it's part of your personality?
sometimes I'm on my phone too much, which I'm trying to stop. But that's a lot of people.
That's the modern world, yeah.
That is. But quirky, I'm could be quirky because I'm my own person, right? I'm a little bit wild and different in my approach, and my kids and my everything. So I just try to do everything I can. I'm sure my wife would have a lot of quirks, but I have I'm not the neatest guy in the world. I can be messy, right?
Well, you mentioned Marie Kondo earlier.
Yeah, I need that, but it's good. I have some systems to work on. Organization's important. So something I try to do, but it's not always works out. Right.
Yeah. Well, it's time consuming. It's a big commitment. I mean, there's a certain level there.
I get by.
How about that's all that matters. How about weird talents? Anything that you can do? It's kind of like a random.
I think information, I don't like things to get past me, and random information, random trivia, we call that floxinoxynihilipilification, which I learned as a kid.
What was that?
Wait, can you say that? It's one of the longest words in the dictionary. Floxinoxynihilipilification, which is random trivia, random.
Oh my god.
Stuff.
That's got to be a spelling bee word, yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot, and I play tennis too. I played in college. That's one of my passions, and so I got to play with Nadal last week.
Yeah. It was
cool. And I went to Mexico, and there's a tennis thing I'm working on right now. So it's like a new fitness tennis project that's kind of... I don't want to talk too much about it because I haven't announced it yet, but it's going to be really cool.
All right, we'll keep it. Yeah, but it's a cool tennis thing. We'll call it that.
Think about Soul Cycle. Think about Rumble Boxing. And for the tennis world
that are blowing up. And I saw that you got to play with Nadal recently, which is insane. I mean, any tennis fan, that's a total dream. So it's really cool that you got to live that out. Do you if you played a full match against him, how many points do you think you'd win against him?
2.
Was he good? Was he?
No, he's very good, of course.
I mean, obviously he's good.
Right? So just got back all the balls, and I got close to getting him in at one point. But he's
that's good.
Look, he's sharp, and he's a great guy, and he's got good eye-hand coordination. I think that's the most important thing in that sport. And he got to everything, and it was kind of surreal to hit with him just a little bit, for a few minutes. So that's one of the bucket list cross-offs, right? And I'm trying to approach my life with that too, is how do you approach your life with things you really want to do and envision it, and sometimes it can happen. It's just in life in general, and meeting different people, and doing things and doing your podcast. I'm sure you you envision this happening, and I'm sure the things that you envision and you think about a lot, and you just got to execute and put in motion.
Smashed it. All right, let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A here.
Great, my favorite part.
There we go. All right, let's get wild. You've met a lot of incredible athletes, big name athletes, celebrities, people in the entertainment world. Who have you met that you were the most starstruck by?
Oh man, recently I met Jeff Bezos.
Okay, he's a big name.
That was cool at the Super Bowl, and he says, I was sitting close to him at this event, and I talked to him afterwards. He goes, "Hi, I'm Jeff." I'm like, "Yeah, I know.
I know who you are."
Yeah, but it was really nice. He's humble, and he seemed to be a gracious person. I've gotten to meet President Clinton and actually go on a trip with him a couple times.
Wow!
Right before I started my agency, I worked with the Clinton Foundation and doing advance work, which was cool, and went to Canary Islands with him and Aspen and a few other places. So that was really cool meeting people like that. But I think I don't get too starstruck, but meeting guys like someone like the President Clinton, it's amazing, right?
I mean, those are some of the biggest names in the world. Yeah. If you had to play same sport for a 24-hour marathon with no breaks, what sport would it be?
I think it would probably be tennis, because that's the one sport I could do.
Yeah, it's pretty tiring.
I don't know if I could do 24 hours. So
obviously hypothetical scenario, but
maybe it would be like dodgeball.
That would be fun. That'd be a hell of a 24 hours.
It goes back to your childhood memories.
Yeah. Who's your favorite fictional sports agent?
You would say Jerry Maguire, right? Because that's the only fictional one I know.
All right.
But
who's your favorite Jerry Maguire? I'm just kidding.
I don't know who that is. I have a lot of friends in the industry, so I don't want to say anybody's name, but
Gotcha.
There's a lot of great agents out there.
It's quite the industry. And back to Westport, and apologies to anybody that's not familiar with Westport, but if you're ever in Connecticut, ever in Westport, you got to check it out. Or Stamford, San Vegas, where I used to live. Bar Taco. Great place.
Great place, yeah.
What is your favorite taco to get there?
You know I've gone there, huh? So that's good.
Well, Westport, of course.
Of course, right? It's right on the water. You know, I get the chicken and put a little guac on it with some salsas, maybe some pineapple if I'm very adventurous, and a good margarita on a sunny day outside. You know, maybe a Corona. It's a good way to unwind.
Yeah,
and,
the Westport on the water is incredible.
You know, it's very different living out there now. I was in the city for a long time, and you know, we get to work a lot faster, obviously. But I think I've actually gotten more done this year than in the past. You know, living in Westport, because you get a little bit more relaxed. Yeah, and it's good to spend with your family in a nice place like that, with, you know, a house instead of an apartment, and it's just
right.
I guess that's the American dream.
Now that you've built the business out of the apartment, and you can have a separate office.
Yeah, but now we're back here in New York City. So in New York City, it's like, this is where the talent is. And, you know, I want to say this again. I'm so fortunate to have great people around me. And, you know, everybody who works here, and, you know, the people who do legal, and the people that do finance, the people that do, you know, the sales and this consulting, and just everything that I've been able to learn from others, I think is important. Yeah. And you're only as good as your weakest link, so try to surround yourself with the best people possible.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ben. This has been incredible. Really appreciate you hosting me here at your incredible Leverage office.
Hopefully outside, we have this great terrace outside, and maybe I can host you for a drink out here.
Oh, absolutely.
In the summertime.
It's beautiful. Would love to.
Yeah.
Before we sign off here, what's the best place for people to connect with you personally, and then for Leverage Agency?
You can connect with me on my email it's ben@leverageagency.com. My Twitter is @leverageagency. My Instagram is @Benjamin Sturner. I think Ben Sturner was taken, so Benjamin Sturner. And then Facebook, you can hit me too. So anywhere is fine, and I will respond to anyone and everyone who sends me a shout out from this show.
And I can vouch for that.
Yes, thank you.
You're definitely quite the responder.
And listen, being an entrepreneur, it's not for everybody too. You have to have a stomach, because you go through a lot of highs and a lot of lows. You know, you have a big idea, and those ideas might not be the next big thing. So it's not for everybody, but there's always something good, you know, and there's no limits to your imagination. You can go for being an entrepreneur. Yeah. Think big.
Do you have a final quote, maybe a sports quote that you want to end
with? I like to tell people, you know, listen, don't get upset if someone says no. No is not the first two letters of not yet. You just keep going, right? And so I also think, you know, live your best life every day, you know, is one day closer to, you know, not being here, right? So just give it your best you can do, and know that, you know, make it something that you're passionate about. You know, work hard and just live your passions. It's an easy thing to say for people, but just try to spend some time during the day with your passions, and you'll be happy.
Be passionate, be happy. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on the podcast and hosting at your amazing office in the Big Apple. Thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite app and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. There's also tons of helpful marketing strategy and business growth tips you can soak up at hippodirect.com/blog and hippodirect.com/newsletter. That newsletter is the Hippo Digest. It's your weekly recap of creative marketing from all around the web. And if this podcast got your ideas flowing, or you have any feedback, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Reach out to us on your favorite social media platforms at Hippo Direct and Max Brandstetter. That's all for this week. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!